about David. This might be a bit weird for you. Okay, so David is 22 years old. He's from Manchester. At the age of 19, David made it into the Sunday Times Rich List, which is an amazing achievement. He is an internet and mobile media entrepreneur and web developer, best known for launching the App Factory. Yeah. He's also the CEO of the consulting group, the Corporate Group. I understand that you now have offices in Manchester, London, Mumbai, and California. So not the average 22-year-old by any measures. So our first question to you, David, is what age did you first get involved in enterprise and how did it happen?
Probably when I was 12, started using the school's IT labs and the software on it to make little websites for people. It's a little simple HTML site, so I used to make them, sell them, and then that's pretty much what I did for 1 year until the school found out I was using their software. So that was probably the first sort of time I started to do stuff that I would probably say was entrepreneurial. And then from there I set up an e-commerce site, so I do things like eBay selling, and that was pretty much it until college really.
Okay, so what happened in college? What did you do in college?
I started using the sort of breaks and dinner times to make mobile apps because it was around about 2009, 2010, that sort of time, and that was when iPhone had already kicked off. Android was kind of starting out, and I had one of the old like G1 phones, like really early, sort of Google devices, and I started to, with a couple of the lads, hack little simple apps together because we were kind of lucky. It was that early that the apps that we were making were ridiculously simple, but because the phones were that new out the block, we got downloads, which we probably wouldn't get now for the same standard of that.
That's fine. So can you just tell us a little bit more about your businesses and your current business? Obviously you have offices in Manchester, London, Mumbai and California. So how did that expansion really come about?
Well, I mean, tech businesses are weird, in that it's easy, as soon as you get a little bit of growth and you get a bit of momentum, it's really easy to deploy people in different locations, get offices set up. If you were a property business or a business that needs a lot of people, you'd have to put a hell of a lot more cash behind it, whereas with tech, you can kind of get away with, not as much cash and, setting up guys here and there. And, really, the reason we did that was because a lot of the companies we work with in the UK have, although they'll have the head office here, they have a lot of their deployment centres at different parts globally. So part of the reason we put some people over in the US is because we had a client over here who used to have their tech deployment centre out there. So we build stuff over here, build all the code, and then we package it up and have to send it out there at stupid hours of the day in order for their team to deploy it on their network. So it made sense for us to get guys over there so that you could do stuff a bit easier.
That's cool. So what is your biggest inspiration and why? Or who is your biggest
inspiration? Well, first of all, my mum, because she sort of raised me and my sister, and she works a hell of a lot, and that work ethic has kind of gone into me a bit. After that, I don't know. I mean, I don't like look at one guy, but I like looking at what a group of guys do. So there's guys who, the guy who did Uber, you look at him and go, okay, well that's pretty cool in that sector, and then you look at other guys, and the guy who did WhatsApp Yarn, and you've got, this guy I was speaking to the other day is a guy called Vince Cerf, who was one of the guys that you'd say was the father of the internet, and he's 74 now, and I can talk to him on a 20-minute phone call, and I come out of that phone call just I want to do stuff, so different people, but all sort of, let's say, affect what you do in different ways.
So as I said before, at the age of 19, you made it into the Sunday Times Rich List. How is it trying to keep grounded as a young person in business?
I think for me it's quite easy because, even though I've probably been at it for 4 years now, officially with a big company behind it and everything. But in that time, it's been, all the time. So even though I might be doing really well one time, I'll think, well, okay, in a couple of months I could be back there, and so on and so forth. So.
Okay. And my last question before I open it up to everybody else is, what advice would you give to any young entrepreneurs who may be in this room
Hard work. I think at the end of the day, it's like, if you want to be really good in business, you've got to kind of approach it like an athlete, in a sense. Like, if you're a boxer, you'll be in the gym 24/7, and even when you're outside of the gym, you're doing stuff in preparation for the next fight. It's kind of like that. Like, during the day, if I lose time doing anything that's not necessarily coding or doing something that's going to progress, I kind of get a bit like, oh shit, I need to go. I need to go and do something that'll, you know, help me progress. And it's kind of like that attitude. And I think it will, what ties into that is if you want to do well as an entrepreneur, you kind of need to look at somebody that you want to emulate and kind of follow the pattern, because everything happens in patterns. Like, the guys who did Google followed a similar pattern to Facebook, who followed Microsoft, and so on and so forth. So each company has, like, if you look through the history, has set patterns. And,
Cool. So is there any questions anybody may have for David?
Nothing go.
So what's your current portfolio? What's your main business? What do you do? What are those products?
What's mainly consultancy. So we build products for companies that they deploy within their staff network. So we do things like iPad applications into a business that might hold like knowledge libraries or documentation, stuff that links in with SharePoint. We also do quite a bit of like hacking work as well, like ethical hacking. So company will say, right, here's our, these are our IPs, these are our sites, whatever, and we'll then go, right, okay, well, we found this open door here, you need to patch it by doing this. Yeah, exactly.
What do you think your biggest challenge in business was to date, and how did you overcome it?
Probably the age thing, because my business is mainly B2B, so it's like I've got to go into a company and say this is what I can sell into you. And I think when I was starting out, I was knocking on doors at like 18 years of age at companies that were FTSE type businesses. So it was like, for a lot of those companies, I've never seen anybody under the age of 20 selling to them, and a lot of them it was an onboarding factor, and I might go and meet them and they might say, tell us some ideas, and I might not do business with them, and I have to go to the next person, So that was a challenge, but I think over time you kind of get over that by getting at least one company to do something, and then you can go to the next person and go, well, I've done work with them, which hopefully is some cool work, and they like it. So.
Full question now.
Hi David, I work with kids for an organisation called Reclaim.
Yeah.
I'm new with it, and we just started an awesome enterprise program.
Yeah.
So what would you be saying to them, because they're 13, 14, and a lot of things about success and failure, it's all about school and how to be successful at school and stuff like that. What would you be saying to a young David Carter, 13, 14 now?
Work a lot faster. Should do WhatsApp. But so you're talking like what they should be doing in school if you want to be?
Well, what would you be saying to that young person in terms of if they wanted to explore enterprise and set up their own business?
I'd say the best thing is to kind of do it yourself. If I'd have waited at school or even in college for teachers or whatever to put together some sort of infrastructure for entrepreneurship or anything like that, I've been waiting all the time. Like when I was in high school, it was a case of me sneaking into IT rooms in order to make the websites, because I couldn't make them at home because our software wasn't there. It's kind of, you've got to have that little bit, something to want to go ahead and do it, not necessarily have someone go, right, here's all the pieces, go and do something with it. So this is.
About so you've done before now you've consulted. What do you do next? What's that sort of plan moving forward?
I've sort of over the last year I've managed to move stuff to other people whereby I don't spend as much time in business as I used to do, and that means I've freed up a lot of time to get back to what I was kind of doing in college, which is coding, doing cool stuff there. So for me, it's like most of my day now is just about building scripts and little things that I find cool, which might be something that I think I could turn into a business, or something I think that's cool.
So you sort of connect products and sort of solutions
like,
in your own industry.
Yeah.
And you basically going to say shareholders in your business, you're going to say CEO or whatever your business, and then you're just going to create the next sort of project.
Yeah. If I did something I thought was cool and I wanted to put it into a business, if it made sense to put it within, what we do currently, then yeah, I'd do that. If not, something in a different entity.
We'll have
was in college, if I had like a dinner break and stuff, I used to literally ring up companies and say, can I meet your chairman? And then they'd say, you know, who the hell are you, kind of thing. And I'd kind of give them a story about me being a young kid that wanted to learn about business. And through doing that, when I then started to do the apps, it meant I went into a couple of companies. That was probably the only other thing. I mean, most of it is word of mouth. Like, the best thing word of mouth is like, you know, as soon as you have one company that you've done something for and you think whatever code you've made is really wicked and cool, you can get into the next company and the next company. So.
Thanks. I've got one last question for you. You decided to reject your place at university, and you seem to do a lot of stuff and be very proactive. Do you think entrepreneurship is something that can be learned, or do you think entrepreneurship is something that you're just born with?
No, I think it's like what's around you and what you go through in life and leads you down to a path. I don't think you're necessarily born with it, you kind of mould into it. Yeah, I suppose it's part of it.